I've got a Dogmatika deck for you today. So I have a Royal Rare Alba Zoa, which is kind of my only super cool Royal Rare boss monster. Like I have Royal Rare spells and traps and stuff, but nothing beats a Royal Rare boss. I've been testing with this deck for a while now, and I feel pretty happy about it, at least in terms of gameplay, like in Diamond or something. So I'm going to show you a number of replays showing you the power that this deck has, and then um, we're also going to go into the deck profile, break down why I chose the ratios of cards and so on. Obviously, my primary deck is Eldritch, but it's fun to branch out every once in a while. Now that Horus is here, I'm also probably going to test Horus out in like vampires and other types of decks as well, trying to make those work. Um, Dogmatika is a fun deck going first or second. It has a very control-like playstyle, and a lot of its in-archetype searchers and other cards have solid like interruptions. The way that it's able to do that is we send cards from our extra deck to the graveyard in order to do things. And we can choose going first to send cards that will set up interruptions on their turn, such as Lulua Lilith and Titaniclad. Like they'll summon out monsters for us so we can use to prevent their plays. But then going second, we can send cards like Elder Entity Entis and Malong to bounce their cards, destroy their cards, and so on. So it has a lot of flexibility. I also just love the artwork. Like the Albaz Dogmatika cards and card art is just like the best example, I think, of like storytelling done through Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like it's really, I feel like I could write like a PhD thesis on the Dogmatika Fallen of Albaz stuff. Anyways, so one card that works really well with this deck is Ultimate Slayer. They can't respond to this card with monster effects, so it's really great for breaking boards, especially against Link and Fusion decks, because then we can either send a Bucephalus, which allows us to draw a card, so it's like we took out their monster and they couldn't respond to it, and then we also do stuff. And then if we either draw a card or we bounce a second card, destroy a second card, whatever. All right, draw another card. What are we going to get? A second Nadir Servant. So this is actually going to turn out really well. You'll see in a sec. Ecclesia can special summon herself from the hand if there's an extra deck monster on the field, which pairs up really well with our other, quote, normal summon, which I'll explain at some point. Ecclesia is going to try to search out a Dogmatika card. They're going to Ash Blossom it. That's fine. They still have a Spell Trap negate. This guy used as his fact he can't do anything anymore, and obviously they have the trap that's going to rip and create a negate. Nadir Servant says you can only activate one Nadir Servant per turn, and this card negates the activation of a spell or trap card, which means when they use it to stop me from using my Nadir Servant, I'm just going to say, okay, what about the second Nadir Servant? So we send a Malong, which allows us to bounce that card to hand. We could have also gotten a card that searches a ritual monster or something. Diviner of the Herald is nice. All it really does is going first, we can send a Herald, which searches out a ritual card, or going second, we can also send in a Deer to like destroy a card. So it's good to have a normal summon that also has that flexibility. We've finally gotten our boss monster. I'm going to do this a couple of times in this video. The Alba Zoa. So what he can do, you'll see in a second, is by summoning him with this ritual spell that sends a card from our extra deck to the graveyard, that actually can on its own set up most of our interruptions that we'll have on their turn, just summoning this guy to the field. Yeah, so let's try to do that before he sets up that negate. Too late. Heard he got him. And another reason why they're too late is while I have this guy on the field, all of my Dogmatika monsters, not just Alba Zoa, are completely immune to the effects activated by XYZ monsters, Link monsters, and Fusion monsters, and so on. So that's another thing that I really love about boss monsters is when they arrive on the field, you're like, oh no, I have to deal with this. Like the entire dynamic of gameplay has been warped by this guy hitting the field. So yeah, against this Mathmech player, it's kind of their worst nightmare. He is a true boss. The Dogmatika matrix is able to get a search off. And in addition to making our monsters unaffected, the other huge thing is he can like rip their extra deck in half, which is huge against Mathmech. Like their extra deck is super tight. They need all those monsters to make all their extensions. So between using all their extra deck monsters to set up their turn one play and me ripping cards from their extra deck just now, like they're in so much trouble. So we also had both of the extra deck monsters that we usually send turn one to set up our interactions on their turn. Titaniclad grabbed Fleur-de-Lis. As long as we have a Dogmatika monster, this can non-targeting negate one of their monster's effects, and it's a quick effect as well, which is nice. We also have Blazing Cartesia, which we're going to use to fusion into Grand Granule on their turn. All right, what are you gonna do? They have like no resources. Yeah, this guy's toast. Yeah, he just kind of gives up. He had nothing left. He had no gas. The Church of Dogmatika has annihilated the heathen robots. Okay, Purrelly. Okay, that's another good deck to show. They rely really heavily on their extra deck monsters to make a lot of their plays. That is kind of the downside of Dogmatika. I feel like it's really good in particular formats when particular types of decks are strong. Right now, there's too many decks like Labyrinth and even Snake Eyes, where they have a lot of in-archetype non-extra deck monsters that they use. So here we don't bother using Called by the Grave on Effect Veiler. We'd rather hold on to Called by for like a potential Max C or Ash Blossom. We run Almirage because we can link off our Diviner if we normal summon it. That way there's an extra deck monster in the field, so we can special summon Ecclesia. So we can have 3 of our Ecclesia and 3 of these Herald, and not worry about drawing both of them at the same time, because we can just link this off, and now we've basically normal summoned twice, gotten 2 searches. Nadir Servant, we're just going to send a Garura to get a draw 1, which makes it kind of like... makes Nadir Servant kind of like Sky Striker Engage, where we draw a card and we search a card. And obviously the card we're going to search is going to be used to search anything. All right, we summon Maximus. So Maximus is actually the high priest of the church or whatever before they like absorb the power of the Dogmatika Matrix to become Alba Zoa, like the super boss monster or whatever. So lore-wise, it's okay to end on them as well as Alba Zoa. We just send both our Titaniclad and our Lua Lilith, which is kind of our whole, like this is kind of our whole end board, right? We have a Titaniclad and a Lua Lilith in the grave. So Titaniclad is going to send a Quem, which can put a Fallen of Elbaz in the grave. So now if any card leaves the extra deck, and that includes them like summoning from the extra deck or whatever, then we can summon out Fallen of Albaz. We run both Titaniclad, which confuses with any monster with a high level of attack, or Mirror Jade, which confuses with any monster that has, is from the extra deck. So that can be a really powerful interruption if they can't stop it, because Mirror Jade is then multiple interruptions. It's a banish, and it blows up their whole board if they try to out it. So it's a lot of layers of defense in that way. And then Lua Lilith is able to summon out. So Lua Lilith, for the lore folks, is actually Fleur-de-Lis after they've been resurrected from the grave, basically, by guiding Quem. So, like, she brings her back to life after this, and then they do stuff together. What was I saying? Okay, so yeah, we also have our Cartesia, which is going to be real important. So let's see how this plays out. Probably activate Max C. Yep. They do let it resolve, okay. We are just going to negate that. All right, summon another one. Now we're going to summon out Grand Granule. So I timed it so that after it hits the field, then they use a monster effect to summon themselves, which means that I can trigger both of Grand Granule's effect. One is when it's fusion summoned, you send a card from our extra deck or deck to grave. And second, if they use a monster to summon a monster, then it can banish itself to summon a monster from our deck, which is really nice because Grand Granule is basically the bodies of all these people who have been resurrected back under the control of Quem, which is her whole thing. She resurrects all those bodies to create Grand Grenouille, to create Luella Lilith, and so on. Yeah, so Grand Grenouille is a huge part of our interruptions. All right, so first we're obviously going to summon back Alba Zoa to fuse with this person in order to create Mirror Jade, and then Grand Grenouille activates its effects. All right, they banished the Fallen of Albaz, which is too bad. So first, we're going to use Grand Grenouille to summon out Lua Lilith, which actually is perfect in terms of the lore. Like, literally, Quem brings, you know, yeah, so it's great. Lua Lilith has good effects on the field. If a card leaves the extra deck, we can negate one of their monsters, which is like, if they summon from the extra deck, then we basically instantly negate it. And we make all of our monsters gain a ton of attack. In terms of the card I used Grand Grenouille to dump to the grave, I just sent an Alba Zoa because I already have the Dogmatika Matrix and a monster with 12 levels of, you know, levels in the grave, so I'll just be able to summon Alba Zoa next turn. Alright, they destroy Lua Lilith, which unfortunately for them, Lua Lilith has an effect in the grave. We're in defense mode, so they can't destroy us. So they do manage to clear the field, and we're lucky that this last monster wasn't in attack mode, otherwise they might have tried to one-turn kill us. They're popping off. Yeah, probably instead of sending Alba Zoa, I should have sent Malong. I'm not sure why I didn't send Malong, actually, because this would have bounced this card back. Oh, the reason I couldn't do that is because it was summoned this turn. I wouldn't have been able to target it using the field, because they have the field spell. So actually, the field spell protected it. Otherwise, I would have used Malong to bounce it back. Instead, I just got Alba Zoa for follow-up. So now they have Purrelly Noir, which is completely unaffected by all effects, and it's level 6. It has, it has 7 materials attached to it. They bounce that card. We're just going to use this to summon out a little Ecclesia who can do things. Alright, draw a couple cards. Special summon, get a search. Another Alba Zoa just cuz. We're only running one Fallen of Albaz, and our Albaz is already in the grave. Otherwise, I definitely would have used Ecclesia's effect to search out an Albaz to try to fuse with them. Alright, so instead we can summon the Iris Sword Soul, which is the Fleur character in like the middle of their kind of arc when they joined the Sword Soul characters. It's nice, it's just a free level 8 body. It can draw a couple cards. If we had Quem or the other Ecclesia on the field, we could actually synchro summon Quem. Yeah. Here they shuffled this card back because it's a continuous spell, so in this case it actually will negate the effect, but we don't really care. Ritual summon Fallen of Albaz. Yeah, I grabbed the other copy because if I tried to ritual summon and then they targeted it in the grave and shuffled it back, that would have been bad. However, now we have our boss monster out. They are completely unaffected by our effects, but guess what? We are completely unaffected by their effects, at least the ones coming from their extra deck, so we just have more attack. Goodbye. Now they're going to recycle their resources, but it's not going to matter. They can't hit over Alba Zoa. We also have a Nibiru, just in case we need it. Yeah, unlike my some of the other decks I have, this one relies more on hand traps in order to set up their combos. Yep, another Maxi. Okay, special summon. Get a draw 2, banish this in order to get a negate. They'll shuffle back to avoid negated. We'll try again. They'll shuffle again. Okay. So they do recycle everything that was in their extra deck, which is going to make it harder for us to take them down. Alright. Summon an XYZ monster. Try to ash that. So again, what this guy can do is it allows them to one-turn kill you by attacking over and over and making your attack much lower. Ecclesia cannot be destroyed by battle with something summoned from the extra deck. So you notice this whole deck is just about like hating the extra deck, which makes sense for a ritual card, I guess. But they're trying to make my attack have and have every time, but because Alba Zoa's on the field, it's completely unaffected. Yeah, keep trying, buddy. So I guess they could try to make like a Zeus after this, but again, we're also unaffected by Zeus. Yeah, they just give up. Like, Alba Zoa is just like the out for Purrelly. Who's next? Another Mathmech. Yeah, so like I said, there are some decks that this Dogmatika deck really hard counters, which is the reason why it's good in certain formats over others. Uh, yeah, it probably has more difficulty with Snake Eyes, for example, but it's a lot of fun. All right, going second, try to Ash Blossom, negate. All right, so now we're gonna have like a minute or two to wait for the Mathmech player to set up their board, which is nice. I can talk about some of their stuff. Oh, look at the artwork, isn't it cool? Here's Fleur and Ecclesia. They see Elbaz first entering into the realm. Here's the Dogmatika Matrix, the symbol of the Holy Church, and inside you can see Alba Zoa, like, um, the head priest of the church is like fusing with all the magic of the church and becoming that evil, super powerful creature, which later absorbs all of the bestials in order to become Dispater, which is kind of the lore before Lua Lilith eventually kills Dispater. All right, tried to send Nadir Servant. That doesn't work. Uh-oh, they've got a negate, and they're going to send one of our cards to the grave. So I'm not sure that was the right choice. I guess they really just want to negate my Ecclesia, but whatever. They send punishment to the grave, which is great. That was only really going to be helpful for the next turn. All right. No, they didn't use the negate. They just sent our cards to the grave. Okay. So it's kind of too late for them because we have Fleur de Lis. Whenever they try to use this guy's negate, we can chain Fleur de Lis to special summon and negate them. So they really only have one negate left, which is a spell trap negate. All right, they'll stop us from using Nadir Servant. That's fine. Matrix. Search 2. So they sent an extra deck monster that can negate one of our cards, but it's too late. It's already been activated. Yep, we're going to negate you. Summon out the Alba Zoa. They do negate it, so we don't get to rip half of their extra deck, but it's fine. Yeah, they also, this card negates the effects of cards activated during the battle step. Because Alba Zoa is negated, obviously, then it's unable to do that. But we are able to still kind of destroy their cards. Goodbye. So this guy is still pretty intimidating. So we get Lua Lilith off of the ritual spell to summon, Alba Zoa in the first place, and that's great. Even the artwork is like him, like seeing like the great hole in the sky of the Despia. So it's like him getting ready to become the Alba Zoa. I'm just going off on the lore here, which kind of shows why I like it. But we're able to get Cartesia to get Grand Grignol, which is a big part of what we're doing. All right, we get the Grand Grignol, sends Malong. So that's kind of what's awesome about using Grand Grignol, because going second, or whatever, going first and using it on my opponent's turn, the main thing I like to send is Malong, because it can bounce one of their cards to hand, which is great against the extra deck, which is obviously what we already are going to be really strong against. Bouncing it back, taking out a super powerful monster, maybe something that's unaffected or unable to be destroyed. Yeah, and then after that, if they use a monster to summon a monster, for example, this monster summoned itself, now Grand Grignol gets to banish. This case, we summon out Lua Lilith, which, again, if they summon from the extra deck, we're going to negate that monster and make all of our monsters' attacks get even bigger. Ah, that's fun. Okay. Ooh, Kashtira. Okay, so Kashtira is probably one of our toughest matchups because once a Rise Heart hits the field, it makes all cards that go to the grave get banished instead, and we do rely on getting our cards in the grave. Like, that's a big deal. All right, this hand is pretty much all hand traps, going second cards, and Nadir Servant. So this is a good example of what a just Nadir Servant can get you. First, it gets you a draw one, like we just drew another hand trap. Banish, Maximus. Maximus sends Titaniclad and Lua Lilith, which is pretty much the main board. Quem can send an Alba Zoa, which is great to fuse into a Mirror Jade, and we can summon a Quem. Maxi, called by, that's fine. Better to get rid of it, so now they can't call by on our Fallen of Albaz, for example. Okay. Yeah, we're just going to negate that. No searching. All right, normal summon. They can search out the trap, that's fine. They tried to go to the battle phase to destroy both of these monsters, so that's why I fused before like they started doing other stuff, in case you're wondering. So we're going to use Grand Granule, we're going to send something, we're going to use Quem to try to summon back Albaz. And again, I just sent a Alba Zoa because I'll have easy follow-up for next turn. I just need a ritual monster and we're good. We fuse in Titaniclad, which is unaffected by the effects activated by their extra deck monsters, at least for this turn. Again, it's mostly kind of just follow-up. So it's too bad. That's kind of the main interruptions we used, other than Grand Granule and Fleur. All right. They summoned a monster, so we can summon out Ecclesia, which gets our follow-up. Okay, so we're set for next turn. Tomahawk, nah. I'm just going to negate that. Okay. Destroy a single card. Okay. All right, that's not going to do it, dude. Okay. So first we're going to ritual summon Alba Zoa before we do anything else. When we activate a spell card, Birth is going to banish a bunch of cards from our grave. So we want to get Albaz out of there. Fusion by banishing a card with 12 levels. They can banish our cards in the extra deck. That's too bad. All right, let's get that out of there. Negate that. We get to summon Albaz again. Because I had already used, I think, the ritual spell, I wasn't able to... Oh, no, I can't fuse at this guy because he only has 0 attack, and Titaniclad means you need at least 2,500, so whatever. In that case, I actually just synchro summoned into Lua Lilith. And then we summon her. And all of their attack goes up by a lot because cards left the extra deck, and we can just one turn kill them. Easy money. Yeah, freaking cool. Yeah, the combos aren't that long. Like, basically your whole going first combo is like get Alba Zoa, use the ritual spell, and then on their turn is when you quote combo, because you have a bunch of like interesting interactive interruptions on their turn, which I prefer that. If I'm going to be doing interruptions, I prefer sort of setting up my board quickly and then doing that while they're doing things, I guess. Albaz in hand isn't great. Get a search, get a negate. The Matrix will get us a search. All right. Yep, and this is kind of the other standard. Instead of getting both Titaniclad and Lua Lilith, we just have Lua Lilith. What I started preferring to do, instead of using Matrix to send Titaniclad so we have multiple interruptions, I mean, obviously because Albaz is in hand, Quem to summon back Albaz isn't as good anyways, but I just like to rip whatever their most important extra deck card is. So in this case, I chose to take out their Underworld Goddess, because it's kind of their main extra deck way to out this guy, because he's unaffected to like everything else. And then we just rip half their extra deck. All right, we do have a Max C. We'll see if that actually resolves. Okay, nice. So they are going to get punished for playing. Yeah, kind of an issue against Snake Eyes is they have 2 ways to deal with Alba Zoa. They have the dragon, and they have that one spell that puts you in the back row. All right, Masquerade. Okay, yeah, time to act. So first we're going to make Grand Guignol probably bounce the IP Masquerena, and then we need to do something to take out the turbulence, which is basically, that's what's great about Grand Guignol, is it's basically two interruptions. First is you send Malong to bounce a card, in this case IP Masquerena, and second you can special summon it to grab Ecclesia, which searches out Fleur, which even if all you had was the Grand Guignol, then Fleur plus Ecclesia means you can negate a monster, so we're going to be able to negate this guy. They summon out Unicorn, and they do the right thing here. They use Unicorn to try to shuffle my Ecclesia, because in order for Fleur to work, it needs to be working with another Dogmatika card on the field. So here what I should do is chain Fleur to negate this guy. But instead I just drew into Nibiru, and they're toast. What's also nice is Nibiru pairs well with the fact that they flipped it face down, because it only sends face up cards. So I actually still would have had my boss monster. That was pretty good. Okay, what's next? I think that was the last duel, right? Yeah. Okay, last duel here. All right, another Snake Eyes duel. Obviously, we don't have the best matchup versus Snake Eyes, but it's good to kind of show what we do, which is basically going against other combo decks. If you time your interruptions right, having like 3 or 4 interruptions between a hand trap and the 2 interruptions you get from Grand Guignol can be enough to slow them down, and then we can kill them pretty quickly on the next turn with Alba Zoa and Lua Lilith and so on. Negate the Poplar, no spell for you. They're probably going to use another spell at some point. Oh yeah, when this guy tries to grab the... Yeah, so they try to grab the dragon, we negate that. But we're not in a great spot. I mean, we don't really have any cards. Okay. Ooh, that was a mistake. So, I mean, they're making plays now. Like, they make the Promethean Princess, which summons again, which is going to make the Ambla Whale. But they know that I have Ultimate Slayer in my hand, so I'm just going to slay this guy, get a draw. We have protection from most hand traps, not effect failure, unfortunately, but it is what it is. The Iris Sword Soul can summon herself for free if there's a card that's been negated on the field, which pairs really well with Fleur de Lis. Obviously, they're both the same person, Iris and Fleur de Lis, just like this one's in her, Sword Soul arc. But yeah, if there's a card that's been negated, then summon from the hand. All right, 4,000 damage. You have to do something. Okay, yeah, they have a lot of one-turn combos, one-card combos. Okay, get a spell. Okay. Summon, oh man. So they're about to have like 4 monsters. Fleur de Lis gets a draw 2, hopefully we get some sort of a hand trap, and then we get Grand Guignol, which is going to be 2 different eruptions. So here, I wanted to... Okay. I held off on using Grand Guignol's second effect to special summon a monster from our deck when they use a monster effect to summon a monster effect, because I wanted to time it where Chainlink 1, I activate Grand Guignol's effect in the grave once Princess summons herself. Chainlink 2, activate Nibiru, clear the board, and then after the board's been cleared, it resolves back up to Chainlink 1 where Grand Guignol summons something. So I wanted to be a little bit more greedy. However, because of the wording of Promethean Princess, when she special summons herself using her effect, she then destroys cards. So basically, Grand Guignol didn't get triggered from the graveyard. So, but it is what it is. Nibiru, goodbye. Yep, and then they surrender. We Didn't have a lot, but we had enough. Whenever they used a monster effect to summon, then Grand Grignol actually comes back from the grave. Hopefully those duels have given you a good idea of how the deck plays, like what its play style looks like. So first of all, we have the hand trap package. 3 max C. If you're going into something that has any level of combo-ness, then you definitely need it. You need triple Ash Blossom in order to negate the max C, or to negate a bunch of other important effects. It's pretty good. Obviously, our deck doesn't care a ton about max C. We only special summon like maybe 3-ish times on average. But you know, we can just negate like a draw 3 or whatever. Um, let's see, what were the other hand traps? A single Nibiru, which is great. It comes up in all those times. What you basically want is you want to be able to punish them for using max C. Like if they allow you to draw 6 cards, you want a chance to like be able to instantly end their turn. I only run it at 1 because it's a once per turn and it's kind of a brick if you're, don't need it or blah blah blah. It's also a crossout designator target. So in addition to those hand traps, we have kind of the counter hand traps called by the grave to negate the hand traps. Crossout designator negates a card that we can banish from our deck, which is usually a hand trap. Like they activate max C, we chain crossout designator, and a single imperm, which kind of pairs up with the max C. All right, let's talk about our starters. So we have our normal summon, which is Divine Herald. Usually we just use this to send a Herald of the Arclight to the graveyard in order to search out either a ritual monster or to summon out a ritual spell card. We have Ecclesia, which we can either normal summon, or if we use Diviner Herald, we can also link Herald off into Almirage so that there's an extra deck monster on the field, allowing us to, quote, normal summon twice. So Ecclesia can search out anything. A lot of times you'll search out Dogmatika Matrix, or you'll search out one of your important starters. Then kind of like the superfluous cards. Yeah, our kind of main combo going first is a combination of getting Lua Lilith in the graveyard by using the ritual spell Dogmaticality to send an extra deck monster in order to ritual summon, or to get Titaniclad in the grave to summon Quem, who sends an Elbaz to grave. So let's talk about both of those. Quem obviously can special summon a card from the grave. Most of the time it's it's Elbaz to, create that fusion. But sometimes she can also bring out Blazing Cartasia. And then the thing we usually grab off of Lua Lilith is Blazing Cartasia, because she will then fuse with Grand Grignol to have multiple levels of interruption. The first being that we can send a Malong to bounce a card, or we can send like a Titaniclad to have follow up on the end phase. And then secondly, it can banish itself and it can summon out either like a Fleur de Lis or an Ecclesia who puts a Fleur in her hand, and so on. We also run a tiny little package, which is the Incredible Ecclesia and Iris Sword Soul. So basically, going second, Ecclesia can summon herself from hand for free as long as they control monsters. And she can either special summon an Elbaz, which is great for that super poly weapon, going second, or you can also use it to summon out the Iris Sword Soul, which is like a free level 8. It gets you a draw 2 most of the time because you use the effect when they special summon from the extra deck. It's a nice body. I could see you, if you're trying to be super optimal, cutting this and this for like 2 more infinite impermanence or something. But I think they're fun. I enjoy them. And then last couple other non-ritual cards. We have Dogmatika Fleur, obviously. She special summons from the hand when they have an extra deck monster. Non-targeting negates. It's kind of the way you deal with, for example, Avramax, who can gain like an infinite number of attack and can't be targeted. Well, you just negate it anyways. And then we have Maximus. I might also consider running like a second copy of Maximus or something instead of one of these if I'm trying to be super optimal, because Maximus can kind of single-handedly get your whole turn rolling by sending the two important cards you need from your extra deck to the grave. Even going second, you can send a couple of your going second extra deck cards like Malong, Elder Entity Entis, Aggregator, and so on. Really good. For our ritual cards, we're running two of the Alba Zoa because it's nice to draw into one of them, and then you only have to search out one other piece. Like, you only have to have one more Ecclesia or Nadir or something go through, allowing you to search out the ritual spell, for example, to get everything started. We also run a single White Relic, who, if I understand correctly, White Relic and Quem are the same person. Basically, this card allows you to OTK going second. You can usually copy Alba Zoa, so then it has like 4,500 attack, and then between the two of them, they just like destroy your opponent's monsters and instantly win you the game. Um, yeah, Alba Zoa is great. Kind of more spell cards, additional spell cards. We have extra Foolish Burial Goods. I don't think you saw it in the replays, but basically you can send a Herald or a Garura or something going first to get a search or a draw. Or obviously you can going second send like Entis or whatever, Aggregator, Malong or something. It's really nice because in addition to like sending a card to grave, it enables some of your other plays. Like it allows you to ritual summon using Dogmatika. It allows you to have an extra deck monster in the grave for Maximus to be able to summon itself. I think it works really well with this deck. I'm not running Dogmatika Punishment, which is the trap card that you can search out because first of all, it does conflict with extra Foolish Burial because you can't set spells and traps that turn. And second, because when I tried running it, like, we don't have as many extra deck cards we want to send that only, like, destroy opponents' cards or negate their opponents' cards and so on. So punishment actually isn't amazing in our deck, especially when we already have so many other ways to send our important extra deck cards to the grave. And it's not amazing getting locked out of using your extra deck. Like, we do want to summon Grand Granule. We have a decent number of ways to synchro summon Lua Lilith. Also, I run two Lua Lilith because it's really nice to first get one in your grave, and then on your opponent's turn, you can have Grand Granule banish itself to special summon, which allows you to negate one of their extra deck monsters on summon, and it can boost all of your monsters' attacks to get enable OTK, and sometimes it's nice to even synchro summon using a Quem or a Cartesia to combine with like this or a Sword Soul or something. I like being able to do that. More on the spell cards. Nadir Servant, it's another starter. You send a Garura to grab either a Maximus if you want to play it safe, or you can grab an Ecclesia who will search a Maximus, who can send all of your important cards to the graveyard to get a draw. It's solid. Ultimate Slayer, I only run two of them because, first of all, you only go second half of the time, and secondly, there aren't an there are some decks where their extra deck monsters don't matter that much, like Labyrinth, for example. So I felt like two was fine. I didn't feel the need to run three. I do own three, so if I wanted to, I could. Yeah, but I think two is good enough. Dogmatika is your way to get your ritual monster back from the grave. I only have it at one because, first of all, it's better to be able to use this to either, set up all of your follow up, or you could send like a Malong or a Herald to summon out your White Relic. So it's just the better ritual, but this is how you like recover resources in the grave. If you find that you need like more of these because you're like running out of the games are lasting too long, then that's not good. This deck does want to like instantly kill your opponent pretty quickly, where you shouldn't have your games lasting long enough where you need multiple copies of this. Three of the Matrix, it's great going first and second. Going second, it just gets you additional searches. Going First, you can rip cards from their extra deck. Going second, you can take cards from your extra deck to like bounce their cards and blah blah blah. Solid stuff. I really like these ratios. Extra deck cards, we've talked plenty about Entis. This is kind of the only way that we can destroy their back row, which is definitely a limitation, but I like it. Garura gets a draw one. Titaniclad, you definitely want to have two of these because sometimes you want to have a target for your Fallen of Albaz in addition to having one that you send to grave. And you want to be able to have one that Mirror Jade can send to the graveyard while actually like giving you advantage. Like we're not just going to throw random additional Albaz related fusion monsters just so that when Mirror Jade occasionally gets made, it can use its banish more. Like our extra deck is already pretty tight. Grand Grignol, I could see you making an argument for wanting to have a second one of these, but I really like the ratios for where everything's at. 2 Herald of the Arclight, you absolutely need 2. There are plenty of times when you'll have something set up where the only way you can get to having Alba Zoa and Dogmaticality is by sending 2 cards from your extra deck to the grave. So yeah, you definitely need 2, which is too bad because like our extra deck is already really tight. Like I'd love to have 2 of these, I'd love to have 2 of these, but whatever. You need a Malong, obviously. It's my favorite thing to send off of Grand Grignol. Grand Grignol sends one level 6 or higher light or dark monster, and it's level 6 light, which is perfect. This is definitely a card you can cut. I just sometimes found cases where like I have a negated Herald on the field and then I summon out the Iris Sword Soul. And I'm like, man, if only I could, synchro summon a level 10 here. Or maybe I do like use Herald's effect and it's turn 3 and I summoned Ecclesia last turn. And I'm like, man, I could make a level 10 here. So there are just some times where it's like I want a level 10. And also, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Baron de Fleur is canonically Fleur de Lis. Like, does that make sense? I think they're the same person, so even like following the lore, it works. But if not, this is definitely the most cuttable card in the extra deck for like a second Grand Grignol or a second Entis, probably a second Entis. I talked about why I like having 2 Lua Lilith. I talked about why we have Almirage as a way to make it so we can, quote, normal summon twice. Bucephalus is really important because whenever we send something to extra deck using Ultimate Slayer, for example, not for example, like when we use Ultimate Slayer, we need to have a link monster to take out one of their link monsters. And in this case, we can send Bucephalus, who sends a Garura, so we draw 1 in addition to everything. And then we have Aggregator, which is a good extra deck XYZ monster, so if they have a Zeus or something, we can send this with Ultimate Slayer to bounce it back to hand, and then Aggregator will negate another card on the field. I have also considered cutting Aggregator, just because the only XYZ monsters we usually see are either Purrelly Noir, who's like unaffected by effects until like your end phase or after you've already used most of your important cards to kind of play through them, or against Kashtira, it's not useful to have Ultimate Slayer against a Rise Heart because all monsters sent to the grave are banished instead, and this card only has its effect if it gets sent to the grave, and Ultimate Slayer only has its effect if you can send a monster to the grave. So yeah, I've also considered cutting Aggregator for something else, even though it's like you should have it as an Ultimate Slayer target, and it's just like admitting, yeah, I'm never going to be able to use Ultimate Slayer against XYZ monsters. But then I had too many duels where I went against like Tearlaments and they have like a Time Thief Redoer, and I'm just like, okay, fine, I want to have a XYZ target for it. Great. I hope that you enjoyed this video, that you got to learn about the Dogmatika lore. You get to see all the super cool artwork of all of these different cards. Yeah, that's going to be all for this one. See you in the next video. Peace.